One of the things that I try to do on a regular basis is to go through my code regularly as I'm working on a project and just do a code review. And in the best of all possible worlds, code reviews are done by somebody else. I'll write code, somebody else will review it, and will make changes as necessary. But when I'm working by myself, which I do a great deal of the time, I wind up doing the code review on my own. And I typically set aside Wednesday afternoons to go through the previous week's work and just find things that need to be cleaned up. And if you look at our code base right now, there are a few things that need to be cleaned up. For example, I have this reservation model, which we were using early on, but I also have this reservations model, plural, and they duplicate each other. I don't need this one anymore, so I'm going to get rid of it. Which means that a few things will break. For example, in the main package, I no longer can put a reservation model in there because it doesn't exist anymore. I'm going to leave that alone for a minute because there's another thing that I noticed. I've named every one of these types using a plural word, even though in code, when I draw a particular user out of the database, I'm looking at one user. When I want to have more than one users, I'll draw a slice of users out of the database. So I'm going to rename this model to user. And I'll rename the comment. And I'll do that for all of my models, because they all should be singular. It just makes your code read better. When you have the S on the end, making user, for example, plural users, your code really isn't as readable because it implies there might be more than one in that, when in fact there is not. So let's fix all of these. And let's fix these too. So that should take care of it here. Now, back in our main, did that fix this problem? Yes, it did. What else might I store in the session? I may as well put in my user, and I may as well put in a room, and I may as well put in a, what else do we have in here? Room restriction? Sure, let's put in a restriction too. We may not use it, but it's not going to hurt anything at all to register these in the session. So there's a couple of things cleaned up right away. Now let's check our handlers and make sure they didn't break. No errors there. Good. So far so good. And let's make sure it runs. Everything compiles. That's good. And let's try our tests. And we have a break. So, main test go. Assignment mismatch. One variable, but run returns two values. Aha, let's go fix that. So that's in main test go. And run now actually takes two variables. So the first one we'll just ignore. And for this one, not enough arguments to call to new repo. Right, because here we actually need to pass a database connection pool to it. I'm going to leave that alone right now, because what we're going to do is use our repository model to create a test database repository. And we're not going to do that right now. We'll do that in a future lecture, so I'll leave that one alone for right now. Now, is there anything else that makes no sense? Well, I noticed one other thing when I went through my code, and you may have noticed it too. I'm down here at the end of the run function in main.go. I'm calling handlers new handlers, that's fine, and I'm calling render new templates. But new templates is actually a package called render. So I'm going to rename that method. So instead of calling it new templates, I'll call it new renderer. And then I'll fix the comment. And down here in this package, I have the function named render template. Instead, let's just call it template, because it's convention not to name a function in a given package with the name of the package as the first part of the word. It just makes it more readable. So we'll have to fix things in our main function here. This will be new renderer. And then we'll have to fix things, renderer. And then we'll have to fix things in our handlers, because those are broken now. Everywhere I called render template, it should just say render.template, which actually reads much better. So what I'll do is copy this and say edit, find, and replace. So I'll find renderer render template and replace it with renderer render.template. And that should fix it. And it appears to. Let's make sure things run. I'll clear the screen. That's much cleaner. Okay. So that was just a minor cleanup, and we do have to remember that we're going to have to fix our setup test here. So we can fix this one right now. Render new renderer. We'll have to fix this part, and we'll do that when we get to, when we actually have a couple of database functions to test. We'll set up a new repository, database repository, specifically for testing, and we'll use that in this this test. But we'll be a couple of lectures before we get there. In the meantime, we have cleaned up our code a little bit. We've made it more readable, and I think that we are ready to move on to actually work with the database. So let's do that in the next lecture.